So this is huge. 3 million documents related to Jeffrey Epstein were just released. And yeah, it's caused total chaos. But as we sift through all the names and connections, something much, much darker and honestly weirder is starting to come into focus. Let's get into it.
Look, these files aren't just confirming what we already kind of suspected. They're pointing to secrets that are way more sinister than I think anyone really imagined. So the big question we're really digging into here is, beyond the island, beyond the abuse we know about, what was Epstein's real, darkest secret?
All right, to help us make sense of this whole mess, we're going to follow the work of an investigative journalist named Nick Bryant. And what's wild is that Bryant's own name pops up in these files. Check out this email sent between Epstein's inner circle. Remind Jeffrey Epstein to call Nick Bryant alarm. I mean, that one word, alarm, it really tells you everything, doesn't it? They were clearly panicked by his reporting.
So who is this guy, Nick Bryant? Well, he's not new to this. He's been on the Epstein case for over a decade, way before it became this huge global story. We're talking, he was one of the first people to publish Epstein's infamous Black Book and all those flight logs, way back in 2015. He's the one who first showed the world just how massive this network really was.
And this is where it gets personal. Epstein's crew was literally tracking him. They were passing around his picture in internal emails, warning people, hey, watch out for this guy, he's a journalist, he's asking questions. They saw him as a major threat, and that's exactly why his take on these new files is so critical. So what did he find? Well, it all starts with the bizarre secret language they were all using.
Okay, so first up, decoding their secret language. This is one of the biggest things to come out of the emails, this constant use of weird coded language. It's really the key to understanding how they all communicated in plain sight.
All right, take a look at this. It's an email between Epstein and a pretty well-known urologist, Dr. Harry Fish. On the surface, it just sounds simple, right? Almost like a kid's dinner plan. Pizza and grape soda.
But an innocent dinner plan? Probably not. We know from everyone around him that Epstein was obsessive about his diet. He had a personal chef who flew with him everywhere. So a junk food meal like this, it just seems completely out of character. And that's why investigators are pretty convinced pizza was actually a code word for something else. And seeing it pop up here is just deeply, deeply disturbing.
And believe me, it gets even more sinister. In another exchange, you see this really strange, kind of racialized and just violently misogynistic language being used. The conversation is supposed to be about what kind of seafood they like, but the way they talk about it, throw away the heads and you keep the body, it's just stomach-turning.
And this is really the chilling part, right? You've got this duality in how they talk. On the one hand, you have the surface meaning, just a boring chat about seafood. But then, on the other hand, you have what investigators believe is the real meaning, a disgusting coded language used to objectify and categorize people. I mean, think about the level of dehumanization it takes to even speak that way.
But it wasn't just about codes. As we're about to see, this kind of language was used to hide something way more direct, just brutal, explicit allegations of violence involving some of the most powerful men on the planet.
So let's take the case of billionaire Leon Black. The story we all heard, the mainstream narrative, is that he paid Epstein something like $160 million for tax advice. That's what's on the left. But then you look at what's in these emails on the right. It's what appears to be a victim statement, alleging absolutely horrific sexual violence, when the victim was just 7 or 8 years old.
Let's just stop and think about that number for a second. $160 million. The official story is that this was for tax advice. But you have to ask yourself, what kind of tax advice costs that much money? The sheer size of that number, especially when it might have been a cover for the kind of pure sadism alleged in these files, it's just staggering.
And the email goes into just excruciating detail about the alleged abuse. So this wasn't just about trafficking, you see. This points to a whole culture of profound sadism and violence, which Epstein was allegedly facilitating for all of his powerful friends.
But even that might not have been the darkest secret. Now we're going to pivot to what is honestly the most bizarre and disturbing theme that runs through these files: Epstein's obsession with eugenics and this idea of transhumanism.
Yeah, sprinkled all through these emails are references to these absolutely shocking topics. We're talking about black market babies, human cloning, so-called breeder programs, and even claims from survivors that their eggs were harvested without their consent.
And that word, breeders, that's not just some theory.
That's the actual term that trafficking survivors themselves have used to describe what was done to them. Virginia Giuffre testified that Epstein and Maxwell wanted her to have a baby for them, so this connects these really wild-sounding theories directly to survivor testimony.
And then you stumble across emails like this one. It's from Sarah Ferguson, the Duchess of York, and she's congratulating Epstein on the birth of a baby boy. Now, there is absolutely no public record of Jeffrey Epstein ever having a child. So who or what is this baby boy? It's just another deeply unsettling piece of a really strange puzzle.
Okay, so this is where it gets truly weird. But there's a disturbing kind of logic to it if you follow the steps, right? Step 1. Back in the 90s, cloning becomes a real thing with Dolly the sheep. Step 2. You have Epstein, a complete megalomaniac with basically unlimited money. Step 3. The emails show he was obsessed with his own genetics, with passing on his DNA. And Step 4. You have survivors alleging their eggs were harvested at his ranch. You put all that together, and the absolutely insane idea that he might have been trying to clone himself, well, it suddenly starts to sound disturbingly plausible.
So, after all of this, the secret codes, the horrific violence, this crazy transhumanist agenda, how does any of it line up with the official story?
Well, this is where the entire narrative just completely falls apart. According to investigators like Nick Bryant, the cover-up of Epstein's crimes, it's not a Democrat thing or a Republican thing. It's systemic. It's something that has stretched on for decades, across multiple administrations: Bush, Obama, Trump, and now Biden. The protection this guy got appears to be institutional.
And this right here, this is the ultimate contradiction. On the left, you have the FBI's official conclusion made just this year. Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell had no co-conspirators. And then on the right, you have Nick Bryant's haunting question after looking at all the evidence. If you really started to prosecute everyone involved, where would you even stop?
And here's the thing you absolutely have to understand. As shocking as everything in these 3 million documents is, they are just a tiny fraction of the total files that actually exist. I mean, look at this. What's been released is just that little slice. Almost everything is still being kept hidden.
And that leaves us with one final, chilling question. We've just seen a glimpse of the horror that was in the small batch of files they were forced to release, so it just makes you wonder, what in the world is in the mountain of documents they are still fighting so hard to keep secret?